the R3 suits. The suits themselves have been undergoing a big improvement over many missions now. This is the latest rev of that suit. The suits themselves have been improved to improve donning and doffing capabilities, as well as basically adjustments to account for spinal growth on orbit. So those suits are also first-time flyers for this time around. A quick reminder, the timing of the static fire and dry dress sequence just before launch. If you remember going back to Crew-12, they were separated and put on 2 different days. We're doing the same thing again for Crew-13. And the reason being is that if you even go back to Crew-9, the first time they were flying off at Slick 40, the winds of the day blew back soot from the exhaust that exited the bottom of the vehicle during the static fire, and it deposited on the Dragon. So what is going to happen is that we choose the time of the static fire such that the winds of the day will blow it away from the integrated stack. So that is one of the reasons why we're separating the 2 operations between the static fire and the dry dress operation. So looking forward to another good operation there. Overall, it's been a very clean campaign thus far. We're talking to SpaceX weekly, daily, all the time, and we're not really tracking a lot of issues going forward right now. So looking forward to a very exciting next couple of months. I would like to say I'm very excited for our crew, especially our first-time flyers, and for Jessica Watkins, who will be the first NASA astronaut to fly twice on a Dragon. So hopefully others will be able to have that same bragging right. So thank you for your time here, and let me hand it over to Mathieu.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you very much, and good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you. So 2026 so far has been a remarkable year for Canada in space. Of course, everyone's seen Artemis II, the very successful mission with Canadian astronaut Jeremy Henson on board, and really that captured the pride of all Canadians. And now, in the same year, we have another Canadian who's going to go to space. So Canadian astronaut Josh Kutryk will fly to space on his very first mission, but this will be the 4th long-duration mission for a Canadian astronaut to the International Space Station. You'll recall that the last time was David Saint-Jacques, who came back in 2019. I'll just repeat it in French just to underscore this. Donc, ça sera la première mission de l'astronaute canadien Josh Kutryk qui va aller sur la Station spatiale internationale. Ça sera la 4e mission de longue durée pour un astronaute de l'Agence spatiale canadienne à bord de la station. So what will Josh be doing? Clearly he's going to be helping the rest of the crew with the operations of the space station, but he'll also have the opportunity to carry out a number of science experiments, Canadian science experiments, most of which will be focused on human and life sciences, because that has become a niche for Canada. In addition to that, he'll have the opportunity to operate and commission a number of examples of Canadian technology already on board the space station. And of course, if I'm talking about Canadian technology, I can't not mention Canada's main contribution to the International Space Station, namely the mobile servicing system, so that we call affectionately Canadarm2 and Dexter. And these robotics components have played a critical role in the assembly of the ISS, but now that that assembly is complete, it's continued to play an essential role for its operations, maintenance, and resupply. So now, on top of witnessing the Canadian robotics on the space station, we're looking forward to following Josh Kutryk's mission with his crewmates on board the ISS, and actually we're quite confident that he'll be able to showcase Canadian know-how and excellence with the rest of his crewmates. So thank you very much. And now I'll hand it off to Julianna.
Thank you very much. I'm excited to be here today to talk to all of you about our upcoming Dragon launch to the International Space Station, the Crew-13 mission. As you heard, we are targeting no earlier than September 12th for that mission from Launch Complex 40 in Florida. Like I said, we're really, really excited about the mission, especially excited about launching the crew, Jessica, Luke, Josh, and Sergey. As you heard, Jessica, we love a frequent flyer on Dragon, and very excited to have Jessica fly again on Dragon. And we're also really excited to enable the first spaceflight for Luke, Josh, and Sergey. So pretty excited about that. As you heard from Richard and Dana, things are going really well for preparation, as far as preparations go for this mission. You heard Richard talk about the Dragon test drive, which is this Friday, and in addition to donning their suits and performing seat rotations, leak checks, comm checks, things of the like, the crew also has the opportunity to listen to the sounds of Dragon in space and in flight, so they can understand what it's going to be like when they're flying. So that's a pretty fun opportunity. I'd also encourage you to ask the crew about that. Pretty cool. Richard really covered all of the milestones on the vehicle exceedingly well. So third flight booster, like he said, Crew-12 Starlink mission, and now Crew-13. The Dragon spacecraft itself, processing is going really well. We will transport that Dragon spacecraft to the Launch Complex 40 about a week before launch. So pretty exciting times. At SpaceX, we are really proud to partner with NASA. It takes a lot for the teams and the hardware to be ready to fly, and we're excited about that partnership. Human spaceflight is core to SpaceX's mission, and the top priority of the company is flying these astronauts safely. So we're really proud to partner on that with NASA and the rest of the teams. We're also really proud and excited at SpaceX to enable all of the amazing science that has gone on the International Space Station, and we're super excited to see the forward-looking science that will continue to occur on the International Space Station. So with that, I just want to thank NASA, CSA, Roscosmos, and the entire team. Go Crew-13. Thank you.
Thank you all for those opening remarks. And with that, we're going to move into the question and answer portion of today's briefing. Now, we have some media in the room. As a reminder, if you want to ask a question on the phone, press *1 to raise your hand. If you hear your question asked, please press *2 to lower it. Before we get started, we do have a lot of interest today, so please limit yourself to just one question. We'll start here in the room. Mark.
Mark Caron with the Aviation Week and Space Technology. I'm going to dial back mentally to April when NASA announced the 4 crew for 13. And at the same time, your announcement said you were moving the launch from November to mid-September at the earliest. And so you announced the planned date today. But there was also notice of trying to increase the launch cadence. And I'm wondering if you could elaborate on that a little bit more. Are you trying to do more missions before the ISS is deorbited, or make more crew flight opportunities, or more research, or some combination?
Great question. It has always been our goal to enable as many missions as we can to station. So as you're aware, our original plan had missions rotating on a 6-month basis. We made a shift in the agency's plan when we were facing a substantial budget reduction. And because we have to order flights 3 years in advance, you can't just quickly make a change. So you kind of have to do, advanced planning for that. So we made a shift to this 8 to 9 month kind of mission space. And then congressionally, we ended up healthier. And so we're going back. What you're seeing is we're going back to our original plan. It is certainly our goal to give as many people the experience of flying as we can. It's going to serve us well, both for space station, but also as we look forward to the rest of our Artemis missions. And so we have pulled back the flight, and we are going back to about a 6 to 7 month spacing between all the missions.
Thank you, Dana. We'll stay here in the room.
Hi, Elizabeth Howell from Canadian Geographic, and this might be for Mathieu, it might be for Dana or one of the U.S. managers, but essentially I did a bit of math, which is kind of dangerous, and I went, okay, we had Chris flying in 2012, and we had David flying in 2018, and then we had Josh assigned for a 2024 mission, and so 6 years would be 2030. Notwithstanding what Dana just said, is there a plan to get another Canadian astronaut on the space station around 2030 before? Has this been discussed? I realize that's a bunch of questions, so what do you have to say?
Well, we're working very closely with NASA and the rest of the partners to identify additional possibilities for our Canadian astronauts. That's something that's very important to us. And clearly, a lot of pieces are moving, and we're working very closely to identify possibilities. And we're happy that we have such strong relationships to be able to have those discussions.
Thank you. Next question in the room.
Hi, Will Robinson-Smith with Spaceflight Now. Thank you all for taking the time with us today. Question for Julianna, if I may. This is the second flight for Dragon Grace, but the Dragon fleet in total is starting to, get up to close to the double digits in flights, around 4 or 5 for most of them. As you look towards the end of the space station and the partnership that SpaceX has with some of these commercial stations, I wonder how you're starting to prepare the Dragon fleet to get up to those higher-ended mission numbers, your 9, 10, 11, and what the future of the Dragon program kind of looks like at this point. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Some stats actually about the Crew-13 mission. So this is our 18th human spaceflight mission and our 53rd mission, Dragon, to the International Space Station. So that's some good numbers for you to kind of base your question around. We take, actually across Dragon and Falcon, we take a robust qualification approach to look at reuse. We look at the system as a whole, we look at subsystems and assess, each component reaches its qualification. Does it need to be removed and replaced between flights? How many number of flights? And how, and we basically track life at the component level and at the system level, again, on Falcon and on Dragon. And so that's something, especially for the NASA missions, we work in partnership with NASA. The NASA teams review all of our design life, all of our qualified life, and ensure that we're operating within the vehicle qualification and we're operating safely. I see a significant amount of life remaining on our Dragon fleet. We do some of that math between NASA and SpaceX and see many more flights available on the hardware itself.
Okay, our next question here, Miles.
Hi, Miles Dorn with CBS News. Question for Dana, maybe. Can you give us a status update on the leak in the Russian section and the path forward with Roscosmos in determining the root cause and any future repair work? And then quickly for Julianna, a lot of people are talking about this Falcon 9 second stage that is predicted to hit the moon this week. Scientists are excited about the opportunity to try to observe it, and I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about how it ended up there and what the company thinks about this. Thanks.
All right, I will hit your question first on the leak. If you recall, back in April-May timeframe, Roscosmos found an additional leak inside the Paracar. They went inside, and what they did was what's called a temporary repair. They had started into something a little more permanent and then ended up changing the position, so they used patches and kind of temporary fixes with that. It actually sealed the leak, so right now there is no ongoing leak with it. Hatch is closed. It is back at lower pressure as they're assessing what the forward plans are, so there's no current active ongoing leak with the patches they've put in it.
Okay, and about the second stage you asked about. So for those who don't know, a little bit of context, the mission he's talking about was the iSpace Hakuto and the Firefly Blue Ghost mission that we launched. As you all see on the webcast, the first stage returns to Earth, but the second stage we need to appropriately dispose of. So for low Earth orbit missions, we nominally would perform a burn or a maneuver to demise the second stage to appropriately deorbit that stage. But for high energy missions, we need to perform a different maneuver to ensure the second stage itself is safe per the appropriate rules and regulations. And so we did that here for the iSpace and Blue Ghost mission, that second stage. And what has happened is essentially a mixture of solar activity and gravity forces have put it on a path towards the moon. As a scientist, I also am very excited to see the observation. But yes, it's one of the things that we're working in partnership with NASA and the other appropriate agencies is what is the best future disposal path for high energy missions that are in the Sun, Earth, Moon system. And so, yeah, we're pretty excited about it. I know a lot of the teams are going to go observe the disposal, so pretty exciting.
All right, thank you both. Now, before we go back to questions here in the room or on the phone bridge, we do have some members of the media at the Canadian Space Agency headquarters in Montreal. So to answer some of their questions, I'm going to toss it over to Fred Fink with CSA.
Oui, bonjour, Jean-Philippe Hughes pour Radio-Canada. Ma question est pour Mathieu Caron. Pouvez-vous nous expliquer en français, en fait, c'est quoi les nouveautés de la version Crew-13 en matière d'équipements qui vont être utilisés, de robots, combinaisons, et quel genre d'entretien l'équipement, c'est-à-dire l'équipage, fera sur place?
I'll answer the question in French first and reiterate in English afterwards. Alors donc, la mission de Josh portera principalement sur évidemment, le maintien et l'entretien de la station spatiale, donc les activités de routine pour s'assurer du bon fonctionnement de de la station spatiale. Donc, Josh est pleinement qualifié en robotique et pour les sorties extravéhiculaires, mais également des sciences, des expériences scientifiques qui portent sur les sciences de la vie. Donc, là, on a toute une série de nouvelles expériences, justement, qui regardent les effets de l'environnement spatial sur le système cardiovasculaire, sur les os, sur les muscles, sur la capacité des astronautes de s'orienter et sur la santé mentale. Donc, une foule d'expériences qui va nous faire plaisir de vous partager tout au long de la mission. Alors, regardez, il va y avoir de la robotique également et potentiellement des sorties extravéhiculaires. So the answer, just to summarize, basically, it was the question was what was Josh going to be doing on board the International Space Station? So I gave a quick synopsis to try to summarize 6 months worth of activities, basically science, operations, maintenance, robotics, spacewalks. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. We're now going to go to the phone bridge. So again, if you'd like to ask a question, press *1 to raise your hand. If you hear your question has been asked, *2 to lower it. Please limit yourself to one question, as we do have a lot of interest, and make sure to state who you are representing and to whom your question is directed. We'll start with Jonathan Seri.
Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us. This question is for anyone with NASA who can talk about ISS retirement plans. If you could give us a status update, are we still looking at 2030 as a firm out, or are all options on the table as far as extending the life until a commercial replacement is firmly in place? Thanks.
I can take that. We are still working towards the plan to retire the ISS at the end of 2030. Of course, actually deorbiting ISS takes about 2 years to do in total, and so that's something that we're going to pot and put in place to be ready for that. At the same time, from a technical standpoint, the spacecraft is doing fine. There's a lot more structural capability in the spacecraft, and so if from a legislative standpoint we're directed otherwise, we will be ready to support and pivot.
Okay, our next question comes from Jackie Waddles.
Joanna, thanks so much for doing this. I had a quick follow-up question about the leak repairs. I was just curious, could you guys give any specifics on the timeline of those repairs and how it was made? I guess I'm just curious because I know the last time this subject was visited in June, there was concern about the method that the cosmonauts might use to try to enact those repairs. Just kind of wanted to know how that all settled. And then if I can really quickly, I wanted to ask Dana, regarding, ISS retirement and the commercial LEO program. I remember from the Ignition Day presentation, you had concerns about how much a commercial market there was for these LEO destinations, hence that plan to shift to a new core module plan. But now it looks like it's shifted back to the original CLD plan. I was just curious what your thoughts were on that and whether your mind has changed about the commercial market. Thanks so much.
Okay, let me answer your leak repair question first. The week that Roscosmos, the cosmonauts, were inside working on the PRK, they had initially thought they would go into what they would consider a permanent structural repair, which would have involved trying to remove a bracket and kind of doing a stop drilling and patching technique. That's something they have done before in a different location. Teams hadn't really worked through all the details with that, and so they stood down from that, and instead what they did, what I called a temporary patch before, is it's kind of an adhesive type patch, so it's different than the sealant material they use, so they put that down. That is isolating it from the environment, it is patching it, it's not as structural as their other patch. So that's that week that they were in, that's what they ended up defaulting to, just to stand down to allow teams more time to discuss it. In terms of CLD, we've had a lot of discussion and outreach with CLD industry. You mentioned Ignition Day. We kind of talked about what some of the agency's concerns were in terms of markets that were out there. We sought a lot of feedback and discussion from industry. Industry expressed their confidence in the original CLD plan, moving out straight directly into a commercial solution. They felt confident in the investments and that we'd continue to see growth in the market. And so we heavily weighted our decision based on industry's confidence and feedback. So you saw us pivot to what I'll call the original plan that we had been following, to go straight into services with a commercial destination. We released a draft RFP, and we're actually in the process of looking at all the feedback that comes back from industry as part of the normal part of that process. We'll turn that around, and then we'll get a final RFP out on the streets as soon as we can.
All right, our next question on the phone is from Marcia Dunn.
Yes, hi. For Joel, please. Joel, I'm wondering how much liability or threat do these pop-up start and stop pressure leaks pose to keeping the station going until 2030, let alone longer? What are some of the other vulnerable parts of the space station that could pose a problem to keep the station running for the next few years? Thanks.
Thank you, Marcia. Right now, I would tell you we're not tracking any major systems. Dana and the LEO program continues to manage the ISS systems extremely well. When there's repairs, the team takes a look at, what do we have on orbit? What do we have on the ground? What do we need to be working on? In fact, one of the upcoming spacewalks is going to address some of the repairs. Maybe you can say a couple words on that.
Yeah, I would just as a reminder, I think we've talked with the media about this before, but the vast majority of the systems on ISS are replaceable, and so they're on-orbit replaceable units, so we do R&Rs when we have degrading or failed equipment, and so from a system standpoint, we have sufficient sparing and logistics, and that's an ongoing cycle to make sure we can support stations. So just as a reminder, when we talk about limited life items on space station, it's really the primary structure that we're looking at, and so the work that we've done on the NASA side, we've got a lot of margin in our primary structure. We've talked about Paracol before, and that the Russians are looking closely at that. That's the number one structural item that we look at. But from a system standpoint, replacing parts, and from the rest of the structures, we're in great shape. We're not tracking any issues.
We have another question at the Canadian Space Agency, so let's take it back to Montreal.
Hello, Trevor, Trelane, Plateau Astro. This is a question about Joshua. His family is going to be welcoming their third child while he's in space, and I think this is only the third time that an astronaut has been in space while their spouse is giving birth on Earth. Are there any sort of special procedures or accommodations that are made for moments like that? Thanks.
Thank you for your question. I was going to joke about parental leave, but actually we have a team at the Canadian Space Agency of a medical team dedicated to ensuring that the family would get the appropriate support to help help Josh, worry about things on board. Clearly he's going to think about what's going on the ground as well, but we were going to assist the family. I know we talk about family, but even on the ground here at NASA, there's a whole family community that can support Josh's family, and we can rest assured that his family will be well taken care of.
We'll go back to the phone bridge, and our next question is from Eric Berger.
Hi, thank you very much. A question for Joel, I think, about the workforce conversion. I think we're a couple months into the initiative now, and I understand there have been a few thousand contractors that have been brought back to NASA. Just curious from an operations standpoint, running ISS and crew programs and so forth, how is this going in terms of safety and efficiency? Has this been a good thing for the agency from your perspective?
I continue to be excited about it. This initiative that Administrator Isaacman has asked us to do, I've only seen positive impacts from it. You see, the administrator had asked us to focus at the Johnson Space Center on the mission control and converting folks. From a mission control standpoint, it's been seamless for the team. Before, when you work in mission control, you really couldn't tell if you were working with a civil servant or a contractor. Today, this transition continues that. And so I'm excited to see it. We're seeing it across the multiple centers of the agency. And so we look forward to continuing this effort.
Our next question on the phone is with Jeff Faust.
Hi, Jeff Faust of Space News. Question for Dana or Joel. Curious what the status is of the seat barter agreement with Roscosmos. We heard some reports last month that there had been an agreement, at least in principle, to extend that. How long has that been extended, and does that include Starliner missions once Starliner is certified for long-duration ISS trips? Thanks.
I'm not sure I have the specific dates by memory. Let me tell you about how we do it. So we tend to work just a period of time in front of us, about a year and a half. So we work on a shorter horizon with all our agreements. So we are covered for a number of missions with the exchanges. We have not finished the work on Starliner. What they're waiting to see is the rest of our flight and certification data. They want to talk about it, but they'd like to see that data before we go into it. We can get you the specifics of what specific missions are covered in the exchange. I just don't remember that off the top of my head.
We'll come back to a question here in the room with Will.
Hi, thanks for allowing a second question for Dana as well. Going back to your opening remarks, Starliner comments, is the constraint to fly at this point more on the technical side and having a full understanding of the changes that have been made, or is it more of slotting into the ISS schedule given all the coming and going both vehicle and cargo missions on the docket for this year? Thank you.
It's a little bit of both. On the technical side, Boeing has done a great job making thermal modifications to the spacecraft. So I think we've shared before, but some of the warmer temperatures that the propulsion system saw were part of the issue. And so they've done a lot of things with thermal barriers and thermal shunts to the spacecraft. So when you make that type of modification, then you got to go back and kind of look at the integrated system and say, okay, how do I expect it to perform with those modifications? So that's some of the work that's still being closed out. Separately, we have a pretty busy launch schedule. We only have 2 docking ports, and we have a lot of other constraints on board, like we have beta cutouts when we can't do dockings. And so we've got to line up that body of technical work we need to complete with openings that we have on station. So that's something that we'll continue to look at as we get better resolution on the overall schedule to finish the technical work.
Another question here in the room.
Hi, Elizabeth from Canadian Geographic again, for Mathieu. So do you mind bringing me up to speed on how the replacement parts are doing for Canadarm2? Because we just had that refurbishment. I'm hoping it's working okay, but please give us an update on how all that's going and then where everything else is standing. Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Elizabeth. So since the replacement spacewalk, which I believe was on June 30th, the Canadarm2 has been returned to regular operations. Now, clearly, because of the importance of robotics on the ISS, it's the performance of that replaced joint, but also of the rest of the mobile servicing system is being looked at very, very carefully, and that was always the case. So, in terms of, and the plan would be to eventually refurbish the replaced joint, and so that it would become the next, spare part. You'll recall that our very first experience at that replacing a joint was in 2002, in June 2002. So, and that proved to be very successful. So that strategy of having spare parts and refurbishments has allowed us to essentially operate the Canadarm2 for more than 25 years now. Thank you.
We'll go back to the phone bridge, and this question from Joey Roulette.
For Julianna, I was just wondering, for how long will Dragon continue to operate before retiring or before Starship replaces it? And then for Dana, what is the CLD program and NASA overall kind of doing to prepare for that day in which the only U.S. crew-capable LEO spacecraft goes out of service? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. So as you heard me say in my opening remarks, Dragon is an incredibly important part of the human spaceflight for the country, and we at SpaceX are incredibly proud to support human spaceflight. We anticipate Dragon supporting ISS for years to come, and it's no secret that we're also developing our Starship vehicle. I personally am really excited about the Starship vehicle enabling hundreds of people to be launching to space, low Earth orbit, and beyond. And so I want to live in that universe where we're launching regularly, repeatedly to LEO and beyond. And so, we're working in partnership with NASA to ensure that we're continuing to support the NASA mission and while developing Starship at the same time.
So a couple thoughts to answer the second part of your question. The first is, I think you're all aware it had always been part of the agency's plan to have 2 different commercial crew providers. And so we're committed to that, and so we're still working with Starliner to get Starliner certified to fly missions. The other thing, just a little more insight into this procurement that we're doing for the commercial LEO destinations. The ultimate plan with the destinations is to have what we call an end-to-end service, which means I can buy my crewed flights to go to the destination, so they're coupled together. So the transportation side and the destination side are tied together in an end-to-end service. And so commercial industry, the destination providers specifically, are working directly with transportation providers and deciding who they're partnering with, what works best based on their architectures and their designs. And so I'm looking forward to seeing that in the proposals and their responses back to us.
We'll come back to the room for another question from Mark.
Oh, thank you, Mark Caron, Aviation Week in Space Technology. And if you already answered this, I'm sorry. I just wanted to make sure from NASA's perspective, how long does the launch seat exchange agreement with Russia extend at this point? Does it go all the way to the end of the station, or is there a year period where it stops?
We don't do it in long duration increments. We tend to do it in year and a half out. And so that's been our ongoing process with the Russians. It is our intention to continue it. We still have discussions that we need to have with them about Starliner certification and sharing that data. So just as a normal practice, we do share with partners very high level kind of certification where we are. And so we're not at the point yet where we can have those discussions about Starliner. So what we've been doing is having a discussion specifically about the Dragon SpaceX vehicles and continuing all of those exchanges, but we will have that as part of the forward work and forward discussions with Roscosmos.
Thanks, Mark. We'll be sure to follow up with you and Jeff on that topic.
Yeah, we can give you the specific dates. I just don't want to try to do it from memory at this time, but we'll get that to you.
We will stay back to the phone bridge now with Bill Harwood.
Hey, thanks a lot. One more question for Dana about the leak. You said the hatch is closed. I'm assuming there's lower pressure in the module right now, which would help with maintaining a zero or a very low leak rate. Do you know if the Russians are still planning to do the permanent structural repair? And if so, would you still put the USOS crew in their Dragon while that's going on, or was that just because you guys didn't fully understand what they were up to, you know, when they were first trying to do it? So really just trying to understand if they're still planning that repair, and will you be fully on board with it? Thanks.
Sure, a couple things. So the PARCA is maintained around 250 millimeters mercury of pressure. And so there is some small amount of pressure on it. It's kept low just to protect the equipment that they have in there. And so we can actually see and confirm that it's not currently leaking with these temporary patches. Roscosmos is still evaluating what they think the best plan is for the structure overall. If they go and do a permanent repair, I expect them to share the methodologies with us, and we'll take a look at what that permanent repair looks like, and then we'll decide on our side what actions we'll take or what we think the right mitigations are. So that's still work in front of us as they're trying to figure out what they want to do longer term with that part of the structure.
Our next question is from Richard Trudeau.
Hi, thanks for taking the question. Richard Trudeau with Orlando Sentinel. This is for Dana and Richard. Is 2026 launch for Starliner's uncrewed flight still possible, or is it the window's going to have to push it to 2027? And as far as astronaut involvement, with reassignments and retirements, how many of the astronaut corps are still involved with Starliner, and to what degree? Like, at what point would you have to assign them training for a first crewed flight? A year or more? That's it. Thank you.
I'll take the first part, and then I'll hand it to Richard. There's still opportunities to launch in 26. We're going to make sure that we've laid in all the right technical work and that we use that to drive the schedule. But in terms of a space station flight plan in Windows where I've got an open docking port, I've still got capability to fly Starliner in this year. From a crew office standpoint, we always have astronauts that follow any of our major developments, and we do have crew members who are following Starliner development, and I don't know that I know off the top of my head how far out we have to assign crew for crewed flight, so I'll see if Richard has more on that one.
Yeah, no, I can add a little bit. You know, there's It's a structured contractual problem in terms of when astronauts have to be assigned, and it's different from the given provider. But roughly, you're looking about a year, a little bit more than a year. I'm going to keep it a little bit generic with respect to making sure that an assignment is in place. And just going back to what Dana was talking about, in terms of being ready for a Starliner mission, we're making a lot of progress in that area, understanding the anomalies that have been in place, and we're just making a lot of really good progress there. So we do have a lot of astronauts following every step of the way, right? They are following every single decision, assessment that are being done in that area, and so whenever that time comes for a crewed assignment, NASA will be ready to tell the public about who it is and why.
Next question is from Ryan Caton.
Hey, thanks for your time. I'm just wanting a little clarification on, I think I heard earlier that the MRAP vehicles have been replaced with Tesla Cybertrucks. I was just wondering if there's any kind of explanation as to why that was done, or if there's an advantage that the Cybertruck offers over the military vehicles. Thanks.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and take that one. The advantage clearly is the speed, right? There is the speed at which a Cybertruck can exit the blast danger area is definitely one of the reasons why SpaceX has chosen to go in that direction. But I think really the main thing that I want to iterate is that it decouples a conflict in terms of trying to compete for the same resources for an MRAP. For the personnel associated with those operations. So SpaceX is just going in a direction that they have freedom to manage those resources. And if Julianna needs to add anything,
no, you can.
I think she agrees with me.
Our next question is from Micah Maidenberg.
Hey, sorry about that. Just a quick question for Julianna. Is SpaceX still actively selling non-NASA human space flights on Crew Dragon? Thanks a lot.
Yes, I thank you for the question. I realize actually one of the things I forgot to mention when I answered a similar question previously is we have an amazing set of missions coming up on Falcon and Dragon that I am especially excited about. We have the Roman Space Telescope mission coming up here shortly. We have a plethora of missions that we're supporting and on contract for, to include missions to support the private astronaut missions, both those that go into the International Space Station, as well as those to vast private space station. So we have a plethora of missions that we are on contract for and very much supporting in the years to come. And so yeah, we anticipate supporting those, especially the missions we are currently actively working.
Next question comes from Robert Perlman.
Hi, just returning for Richard and Julianna, just returning quickly to the handover of crew pad rescue operations. Did the Cybertrucks need to be modified in any way to meet the same capabilities as the MRAPs? And is there a handoff to a point where you hand it off to a Kennedy Space Center or Space Force Station team, or would the crew be taken directly to a SpaceX facility, and if so, where?
Yeah, Robert, thanks for that question. First of all, the modifications, I'm not aware of any modifications. There were a lot of certification that had to go into making sure that those Cybertrucks would start up with a gloved hand. There were a lot of tests in terms of making sure you could egress the vehicle with a bulky suit on. All of those things were proven to be already intact, and they're going to configure those Cybertrucks to be ready to receive those vehicles. So really, everything is in place there. And Julianna, if you want to add anything else.
No, I think you covered it. It also looks really cool.
Our next question is from TJ Mascaro.
doesn't move at. But for those that don't know, we have an organization within the Washington Military Department called the Emergency Management Division. So really since June, our Emergency Management Division has activated the State Emergency Operations Center. And that is a center over at Camp Murray that brings together over 300 people from across 15 different state agencies. That system has been activated really since June, and it's only because it started from a pretty good job pace that it's able to get in and help adjudicate these resources. At the National Guard level, we have the Joint Operations Center at Camp Murray. That's the nerve center, bringing in all of our National Guard team that helps us plan and forward deploy all the National Guard folks that are out there. And these are folks that you're not necessarily seeing in Spokane. The 3 helicopters are up in Deer Park. It's 110 firefighters that are out on the little giant fire in Plain. It's the 2 additional helicopters. As we scrubbed our entire list of aviation assets, we freed up an additional CH-47. It's a twin rotor helicopter that dumps a lot of water at once, and another UH-60 Blackhawk helicopter to be staged out of the Wenatchee area. Again, I want to make sure, yes, we are focused on Spokane, but we are
permission,
also
I rise to lay the papers.
Catastrophes occurring across the state of Washington. I'm going to close with this. The Washington National Guard still has resources available for tasking in the Spokane area. So again, to the community members, to the elected leaders here, to the officials here, use us. We are in, put us in, coach. We've got a lot of things we can do, but we have to wait until we're asked. The last thing you want in this community is the National Guard rolling around uninvited. So please ask us, and we're ready to chip in and continue to help this community recover. Thank you, and I'm followed by